Okay, so as I said, welcome everybody. Today is our final session on the three module series for the EDI training for employers. And this training series has been put together by TSLIP ourselves, so the Toronto South Local Immigration Partnership, as well as ACCESS Employment. And today we have Sarah and Layla who will be presenting for us on internal mobility and career advancement. So please take it away. Thank you.
Thanks, Toby. So hi, everyone. Welcome again. My name is Sarah, and I'm joined here by my colleague, Layla, and we both work on the corporate engagement team at ACCESS Employment, and we'll be delivering the last of our three workshops today. So I will just go ahead and go right into it. Before we move on, I would just like to share I would just like to take this opportunity to begin by acknowledging the land on which we gather today is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Ojibwe and Chippewa peoples, the Haudenosaunee and Huron-Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13, signed with the Mississaugas of the Credit, and the Williams Treaty signed with multiple Mississaugas and Chippewa bands. We are grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land, and by doing so, give our respect to its first inhabitants. So before we go into the training, I'd like to just kick things off by sharing a little bit about what we do as an organization. So ACCESS, we're a not-for-profit organization that seeks to help anyone looking to find a job in Canada, with a particular focus on barriered individuals such as newcomers and refugees to help them find meaningful employment. We have 7 offices in the GTA. However, our client reach goes beyond Ontario as we deliver many of our programs and services virtually to job seekers located all across the globe. So if you'd like to hear more about us or would like us to help some of your staff or clients, please feel free to reach out to us. I will drop our website in the chat here. So feel free to check us out. All right, so always like to start things with a little warm-up icebreaker. We're not going to launch any official polls today, but since we're a small group, but I do want to ask everyone the question, does your organization have a strategy to increase visible diversity in leadership roles? Love to hear from the audience. Feel free to drop your answer in the chat, or feel free to just unmute yourself. You're not obligated to share your cameras today just since we are recording, but would love to hear from you either way. So again, the question is, does your organization have a strategy to increase visible diversity in leadership roles? And you can say definitely, I think so, but not sure, or no, not at all. But would love to, also hear some examples of how your organization is doing that. Okay, awesome. Thank you, Kat, for responding in the chat. You do have it in our roadmap. Great. Anyone else? And it's okay if your company right now doesn't have anything lined up. Okay, 2. Georgetta, I don't understand. Oh, 2. Okay, I think so, but not sure. Okay,
yeah.
Great. Anyone else? Awesome. Thank you for responding. Kat, if you don't mind, and again, feel free to respond in the chat as well, or just simply unmute your mic. But I would love to hear how your organization has this sort of strategy in your roadmap. Okay, maybe we'll move on. But, oh, here we go. Kat, oh, you don't have a mic, unfortunately. It's okay. So she's saying we currently have functional leads supporting with a number of focus areas, and diversity, hiring, and advancement is one of our pillars. Wonderful. That's so great to hear. And for those of you who are not sure, or you don't have a strategy in place yet, we're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about, you know, how you can implement inclusive leadership to, you know, sponsor and advocate for your diverse talent within your workforce. All right. So I'm going to hand things over to Layla to take us through the next couple of slides.
Yes, thank you, Sarah. So that was really good. Thanks for sharing that, Kat. And based on what we were just discussing, I have a few stats that I want to share. First off is that there's some studies that have shown that the average workplace has the following diversity makeup, and that's what these percentages are here that we're showing. So 14% in a workplace, 14% are people of color, 6% are immigrants, 5% of corporate executives are newcomers in the private sector, and 6.6% in public and non-for-profit. So that's it. Intersectionality of gender and race also has negative impacts, especially for women. Around 4.2% of executives are racialized immigrants, and 2% of executives are immigrant women of color. Only 1 in 100 corporate executives is a racialized immigrant woman. Next slide. So with that being said, we want to talk a little bit about barriers that individuals are facing in the workplace. So there's the first point here is the lack of equitable talent and development strategy. So we were asking that question earlier, you know, what strategies have been put into place? And there's very important to have an equitable talent development strategy. Workplace do need this because it helps with the development of career development strategies for your employees. These all should be implemented and to help implement inclusion and equity in your workplaces. And one way with barriers is with this talent development strategy can help at looking at the different things like the job postings, how we recruit in the organization, where are you posting jobs and different things like that. So as Kat had mentioned, having that in their roadmap is a very, very good thing, and all organizations should really think about implementing this. We also have another barrier that individuals are facing are systemic and personal biases. Leaders may not even realize some of the systemic and personal biases that they hold. So with a strategy in place, it can help to combat this and direct leaders properly when it comes to promotion and hiring in the organizations. There's also what's needed, and what is a big barrier for individuals is promotion, transparency and accountability. Without a strategy, again, this can leave resentment and stress for a lot of employees, and they need to understand what is required for promotion so they can see results for the policies that have been put in place. So this can happen as well as, you know, racialized staff might be there and seeing other people being promoted, and you know there's a process in place and it's not transparent on why this person's promoted and I'm not promoted. So this is a big barrier as well. And there's also second runner-up syndrome. So this is an example of that is somebody might feel that they're good enough for the XYZ role, but they're not good enough for a leadership role. And why is that? And that is a big barrier as well. So we really need to have, that also goes back to promotion transparency that we also need as well. So the power of intentionality. Set inclusion as a priority with executive endorsement, and consistently enforce the expectation with performance goals that hold leaders accountable to creating inclusion in their domains. So right now, it is a great time to have a close look at the talent you already have on board to fill in the skill gaps and prioritize internal mobility at your organization. Internal mobility is an essential part of recruiting and talent development. It allows a company to move its team internally to reskill, fill department gaps, and cross-collaborate to get a project done or hit an organizational goal. Of course, navigating internally mobility in a company is easier said than done. It requires a plan, program, and delivery. Part of any successful equitable career development planning must possess the following 5 components. So we have listed here career discussions, skills assessment and gaps, education and learning, sponsorship, and equitable access. So starting with the first one, career discussions, we want to meet, with career discussions, you want to have that opportunity to meet with the employee. Also, if they report with others, also meeting with their other supervisors and managers as well. And also a good example for that too is maybe implementing some sort of job shadowing to help with this career development planning with your employees. When we're looking at skills assessment, it's important to keep an open communication and be clear and honest on what is needed and the work that's being done. And this isn't often only done once a year, but with skills assessments, you want to be able to meet with your employee more than that one yearly performance review, and meet with them throughout the year, letting them know what they're doing right and recognizing their skills, and also being very clear and honest with the gaps that they might have within their role. Number 3 is education and learning. You want your employees to leave better than they arrived. So you want to be there to support them with their career development. Sorry, it's blocked here. Recommend any educational opportunities to support that career development with any courses. Let them know about any things that are available at your workplace in terms of any money that can be given to help them, and maybe advocating on if any courses that they should be taking either at the leadership level, and knowing if they want to get what other departments they want to get into, doing the research with them. Sponsorship is very important as well, advocating for those potential new leaders and see if there's someone above you that that's out of your job capabilities, getting sponsorship from other leaders and other departments for those employees as well. And also the equitable access, fair opportunity for promotion in a timely manner. If you've had an individual that's interested in promotion, setting out a clear goal and map for them to help them to get to that promotion and that level that they want to achieve. We're also going to talk a little bit about designing leadership competencies. We have a quote here: your ability to learn represents your leadership potential. It's important that leaders have specific competencies to work with, especially with working with other hiring managers and leaders within your organization. So we have a chart here. And with skills assessment and gaps, we're ensuring that we have competencies and being able to work with hiring managers and employees, as I mentioned, on individual plans to ensure we're creating opportunities for people in your organization. So an example of a core competency that we have here is teamwork. And this slide is showing that. You can see in level 1, the individual can understand and appreciate and respect diversity and cultural differences and other people's views and opinions at that level. And just to rewind a bit with teamwork, that core competency is work collaboratively with colleagues, customers, partners, and stakeholders. You want to build strong and effective working relationships based on support. There's respect, there's trust, resolving conflicts. You're creating a positive and productive working environment that promotes equity, inclusion, achieving team and organizational goals. So that is a competency of teamwork. So at level 1, the individual will be understanding and appreciate, respect diversity and cultural differences and other people's views, responding positively, build stable working relationship, and is honest and can be trusted by others. When we move to level 2, you can see here that they're proactively supports colleagues, shares knowledge and trusts their capabilities. They're moving up in the level. So in addition to having your staff learning these competencies, it's very important that us as leaders are also teaching them as well. You're learning them as well as teaching them to staff.
Awesome, thanks, Layla. So just to kind of summarize what Layla was talking about, we first looked at the potential barriers that could, present as a roadblock to mobility and career advancement, especially for those who are, marginalized within their workforce or feel like they don't really belong in their company. So it's really important for leaders, especially, to first set a power of intentionality. So obviously through that, set inclusion as a priority from the top down, especially within within your career development planning processes for your staff. And within that, it's really also important to design leadership competencies, such as, kind of assigning different levels for each core competency that a senior leader possesses, as well as their direct reports possesses. Just so, again, going back to that clear roadmap, it creates a clear roadmap for you to assess one's strengths and weaknesses. So you're able to fill in the gaps and figure out the sort of tools and support that this individual would need to further advance up in their career. Okay, so before we move on, I just want to check in with the audience. Does anyone have any questions, comments, any stories that they like to share that's relevant to the content that we just presented on? And again, it's a small group, so I do encourage everyone, not everyone, but I do encourage for those of you who are able to participate and share.
Hi, I have a question.
Yeah,
Karina.
Go ahead, Karina.
So where does favoritism and being part of the group, or you know how you have cliques, where does that fall under with this kind of work, and how can you stop that kind of behavior? Because you can see that people are being promoted not to say that others don't have experience, but others are being promoted because they're friends with someone or because they have more of a included in a group. How do you deal with that sort of situation?
That's a very good question. So in the previous trainings that we did talk about things like the in-group favoritism, as well as unconscious bias. And this still goes on in the workplace to this day. Many people who are only considered to get that promotion are maybe either really good friends with their managers or senior leaders, or may have a very similar profile as the senior leader who would consider them for a promotion. As an example, maybe a senior leader comes from Western, right? And the person that he or she wants to promote was also from Western, went to Western University for an education. So all of these kind of play into that unconscious bias. And to combat that, it really starts from a desire to set that intention. So we talked about the power of intentionality, and you have to, not just senior leaders, but as an organization, in order to give fair and equitable access to promotion and career advancement for all, setting that intentionality to be inclusive and provide equitable access to all is the first step. So first, setting that intentionality, understands that there is unconscious bias at play when it comes to, thinking about or considering someone for a promotion, and really creating from there maybe like a standard rubric or a roadmap of, for example, okay, so for the senior manager role, these are some core competencies needed for this role. And for each core competency, there needs to be a certain level needed to be successful in this position. So creating a skills assessment and really, putting that into writing could create that equitable access for all. Does that answer your question?
Sorry, I'm so bad at unmuting. Yes, thank you for the information. That helps.
Yeah, thanks. Any other questions? All right, awesome. So I'm going to move on. Okay, so we talked a little bit about, the importance of setting that intention, creating a clear roadmap of, of basically putting things into writing in order to create clear, actionable goals, moving towards a very inclusive environment that provides equitable access to career advancement for everyone within the company, not just for individuals within those in groups. Okay. This slide really talks about the importance of empowering leaders through education. So we first set that inclusion intention to create an inclusive environment. The next step is to really empower leaders through education. So really important for organizations to provide both standalone instructor-led inclusion education and weave explicit inclusion education into other training topics as well. So for example, inclusive management education is kind of a pillar within the DEI space that is training. It's training that aims to help senior leaders understand how to manage diverse teams and following the LMX theory. And I'm going to put this in the chat here so everyone can Google it. But I will also provide a very brief explanation. So the LMX theory stands for Leader-Member Exchange. And this theory suggests that leaders' followers develop unique relationships based on their social exchanges. And the quality of these exchanges within a company can influence employee outcomes. Okay, so I want to bring the attention to some of the words on the slide here. We see words like engaging, empathetic, communication, listening, humble, vulnerable, open, understanding. So these are all key words for a leader to keep in mind when they are managing diverse teams. It's very important for leaders to really consider how they are, what their relationships are with members of their team, because studies have shown that if employees have a good relationship with their manager, with their senior leaders, they tend to be more happy. And because they tend to be more happy, they may be more productive. It may improve employee retention within the company, et cetera, all those good things. So, in simpler words, the LMX theory really suggests to leaders and to leaders that, it's not just about, setting clear actionable goals for your team, but also you need to consider how you are engaging with the team. Are you putting yourself in their shoes? Are you being empathetic to their situation, to their diverse situations, right? You may employ a couple of people who for example, just recently landed in Canada. They may not just only be, getting to know your team and your company culture, but they may also be trying to assimilate into the Canadian culture. So that's huge. They may be trying to figure out how to set up RESPs for their kids, how to, go to the bank to ask for a mortgage, to get pre-approved for a mortgage, how to open up a bank account even. So, being empathetic to their situation, as well as to where they originally came from before they joined your company is really important as well. Are you listening to, to their thoughts and their tips? Are they speaking up in team meetings? And if they're not speaking up, like, how can you as a leader support and encourage them to speak up a little bit more, right? So it's really about, making them feel that they belong within the team, even though on the surface, they may not feel like they belong. Are you, a good listener? Are you communicating with them on a not a daily basis, if not a daily basis, on a weekly basis? Are these weekly check-ins, are these weekly check-ins happening? Is your employee happy? Is your employee feeling connected with not just the team, but the organization? So, this slide is really about, in encouraging your leaders to be understanding of that. And in order to have them understand and be more empathetic to their team, education, empowering them through education is a huge part of that. All right. Another example is, incorporating executive scorecards to determine gaps in areas of improvement. So an executive scorecard is an at-a-glance snapshot of your organization from a people perspective. It provides HR leaders with more point-in-time numbers. So this is very beneficial when companies are looking for data, progress, and status toward meeting specific goals. So for example, if first-year turnover, so if you're looking at your executive scorecard and it's showing that first-year turnover is an area of concern, the scorecard can then be used to track investments such as retention programs, employee surveys, like rolling them out, when to roll them out, et cetera, how to collect that data and analyze it, and putting together training sessions to monitor if these investments are actually making a difference. So again, using the power of data to drive change and innovation within your organization. Okay, another example is, for those leaders who are relatively new in their position, a lot of companies incorporate biannual new leaders training. So it provides new managers and managers to be as well with inclusive leader training. So this really, setting this up really ensures that your company is continuously moving towards inclusive leadership. You're encouraging new leaders as well as new leaders to be a bit more inclusive. So you're really setting your organization for success here. All right. Any questions about this slide? I know that was a lot of information. Anything you'd like me to go over again? Okay, wonderful. The next part is really about sponsorship. So according to a research from the Center for Talent and Innovation, the vast majority of women, about 85%, and multicultural professionals, 81%, need navigational support to advance in their careers, but receive that less often than Caucasian men. All right, so I'm going to say that again. So according to this research, vast majority of women and multicultural professionals, around the 80 to 85% mark, they need navigational support to advance in their careers, but they receive it less often than their Caucasian counterparts, especially Caucasian men. A 2010 Catalyst study revealed that more women than men have been assigned mentors, yet 15% more men won promotions. So even though women are receiving more mentorship from men, the men are still winning promotions. Why? So the findings indicate that having more mentorship did not lead to advancement, but having a senior mentor in a position to provide sponsorship, it did improve the situation. Yes, Georgetta, sad face for sure. When I read this study, I was, I wasn't surprised, but I was also, sad to actually see the statistics of this to be so high. So let's dive into some key differences between mentorship and sponsorship. And I'm going to turn it over to the audience here. Can someone tell me what the difference is between mentorship and sponsorship? Anyone? Okay, so a mentor is in a position to advise the mentee. Sponsors provide that advice as well, but they're in the position of power to advocate. A mentor can be anyone in a position of experience, while a sponsor must be from a senior level executive. It must be a senior level executive. Mentors help build a career vision, whereas a sponsor can help execute on that position. Sponsorship is for high potential employees. So for those employees who have expressed an interest to move into management, they're high performing. They've, from the sponsor standpoint, have reached, performance targets and goals, etc. So for high potential employees. So as you can see on the slide, there are three major components to sponsorship. So as mentioned before, mentors advises, sponsors advocate. So sponsors are in the senior level and they have the ability to advocate for you. And how do they advocate for you? By giving that person, for example, maybe stretch assignments, cross-functional projects to increase leadership capacity, and or putting them in front of leaders, putting them in front of the right people. So, going back to the two key components here, the project opportunities and the hands-on leadership training, you provide project opportunities that showcase the employees' work through the organization, encourage hands-on leadership training in boardroom settings, putting them in front of the right people. The relationship at the heart of sponsorship is not between proteges and sponsors, as is often thought, but between sponsors and their audience. So between the sponsors and the people that you're putting them in front of. The people they mean to sway to the side of their proteges, okay? So that's the main takeaway here about sponsorship. It's not about the relationship between the mentor and the mentee, or the sponsor and the mentee, but it's about the relationship between the mentee and the people that you need to sway them to be on their side. Another difference between sponsorship and mentorship, it's not a formal program. For example, at ACCES, we have a formal mentorship program for our clients. Layla can speak a little bit more to this because she runs our speed mentoring program at ACCES. But basically, you know, it's a program for many of our clients who are seeking mentors in the industry. We run events to have them meet one-on-one, and we also set up that one-on-one relationship with them as well. So sponsorship is not a formal program like a mentorship program. Not all employees are mandated to have a sponsor. So usually this happens a little bit more organically. Maybe, you know, someone has expressed interest in moving up within the organization. This may just be through a team call, or this may be through like a one-on-one check-in. But again, there's no formal program attached to this. It's usually through a very organic and transparent conversation between the sponsor and the person that they're potentially sponsoring. And then once that conversation's had, then you start incorporating these two key components, you know, considering, okay, what kind of projects, stretch assignments I can put this person on to increase their skills and leadership capacity, as well as how do I help this person increase their visibility within the company? Okay. Whoops, jumped ahead here. Okay, and another thing to remember is, you know, sponsorship is needed because, and it's very simple, to advance in our careers, we need others to know about our achievements and accomplishments. But most people don't like to brag. They feel uncomfortable about bragging, especially for the female employees, or for the people who identify as women. They may feel that, you know, bragging about their achievements may come off as aggressive or abrasive. So when a sponsor trumpets, or when a sponsor kind of promotes their protege's achievements, they sidestep that self-promotion and its potential downsides. So like I said, particularly important for women or people who identify as women, since female stereotypes dictate that they can be self-effacing and humble. Okay. All right, moving on. So we talked about providing equitable access for all. And, you know, providing that equitable access is really about lifting employees off the floor and breaking the ceiling from the top down, and essentially breaking them away from their workplace stereotypes. For example, women can't be in leadership positions because they're too emotional, right? Or, you know, maybe, oh, I can't promote this person because this person just had a kid, and, you know, I think this person may not be the right man or woman for the job, because they're going to be super busy with a newborn, right? So really it's about breaking them away from the workplace stereotypes and providing that access to everyone. So, you know, no more secret meetings about opportunities opening with your star candidate from your network. And it really is also about cognitive diversity. So supporting innovation through cognitive diversity. So what does cognitive diversity mean? Cognitive diversity is the inclusion of people who have different ways of thinking, different viewpoints, different skill sets in a team. So in today's rapidly changing world, obviously, organizations must be able to adapt and innovate to survive. Diversity of thought, experience, and perspective can lead to greater creativity and the ability to see problems from multiple angles. So, you know, this really ties in everything that we've talked about in the past trainings as well. Really valuing diverse thought and experience and perspective, and creating a culture of inclusion from there. Okay. So I'm going to ask everyone There we go. Okay. So I'm going to ask everyone to pull up that case discussion that Tinbeat had sent you prior to the training today. It should be a case discussion about a man named Jonathan. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen here while everyone takes that time to pull it up. And I'm also going to pull it up on the screen in case you don't have it in your inbox. So give me 1 second here. Okay, so let me share my screen again. All right, can everybody see? Okay, great. So let's look at this case discussion and think about just Jonathan's situation here. So I'm just going to read through this. So Jonathan is passionate about working in the financial sector. Excuse me. Jonathan was born in Ghana with post-secondary education from a top university and experience working for multinational financial organizations. Go, Jonathan. He also has experience leading teams directly and cross-functionally. So following his recent move to Canada, he decided to pursue a career within a medium-sized financial technology company. He really likes the organization, their mission, and how they talk about organizational inclusion. He truly feels like he is settling into his new life in Canada. So 6 months into this role, he is moved into a new team. He notices his new manager, Cindy, is not welcoming to his ideas. In meetings, his colleagues are continuously asked for their solutions to problems, while Jonathan feels that his ideas are pushed to the side. Jonathan also feels like he is receiving mixed messages regarding his ideas and performance. He has received several instances of positive feedback from other team members, but Cindy continuously seems to be critical whenever he speaks. This has caused Jonathan to isolate and speak less during discussions. Recently, Jonathan's colleague told him that Cindy thinks his ideas are lacking substance and that he shouldn't have been moved to her team. So after a year with the company, he becomes aware of a leadership role that he knows he is fully qualified for as he worked in a similar role back in Ghana. He sends an email to Cindy to discuss his desire to apply to the role, but she replies dismissively and says she doesn't think he would be a good fit for that team. And fit, the word fit is in quotation marks. Jonathan decides to speak with Cindy privately. He shares the way he feels in team meetings and that his ideas don't seem to resonate with her, but receives positive feedback from other team members. He outlines that he has his ideas work in previous roles and doesn't understand why he wouldn't be a good fit for the leadership role based on his qualifications. Also, he can't understand why his ideas are being categorized as subpar. Cindy tries to avoid the issue and only states that Jonathan needs to add more substance. She doesn't outline the specific problems with his ideas or performance. As Jonathan is about to leave the meeting, Cindy says that maybe he should try harder to communicate his ideas in better English because his accent is a little harsh. Jonathan feels saddened by these remarks and decides the company may not be the right place for him and considers leaving. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy and paste these discussion questions here and paste it to everyone. And I want you to really think about these questions and Jonathan's situation. And I'm going to put you into small groups. So I'm going to open up breakout rooms here. Okay, Thanks, Tim Beat, for making a co-host, so I can do that. Breakout rooms. There we go. So I'm going to put each of you in a group randomly. And welcome back, everyone. Just going to give people a couple more seconds to come back and join us in the main session, and then we'll kind of dive a little bit deeper into the case discussion. Maybe I'm going to ask one member from each group share what the group had discussed today. All right, wonderful. Welcome back, everyone. Okay, so how was that? How was that group discussion?
It was good, and I apologize, but I might have to leave in 10 minutes. Sorry.
Okay, no problem. No worries, I understand you got things to do. But maybe Corinna, you can maybe share what you had discussed in your group.
Well, the first thing I thought about is the way that so this is not an excuse of Cindy's behavior, but the first thing that I noticed was, one, that Cindy wasn't involved in the decision or recruitment of this person. I forgot the name already. So I'm wondering if that could have caused something. Secondly, I noticed, and maybe this is just me being wanting extra information, there's nothing mentioned here about onboarding, orientation. So how would he know any of the requirements of the job or what Cindy's expectations are? This is the first thing I just from the top beginning. But then I'm looking at this thinking, Cindy really needs some coaching on how to work with being diverse and inclusive, because the last, almost the last comment about talking about the accent, I've had the experience where I've had staff that do have heavy accents, but I didn't see them as not being able to communicate. I saw it more about, let me help them and coach them to improve their articulation, get them a mentor, just because what they have, their talented, right? So it's not about the talent. It's, they're from somewhere else. They have an accent. So they just need to work a little bit on the articulation or whatever to help them improve. So I just felt like Cindy is not interested in supporting this person. And she should be. They're part of the team. Why wouldn't you want your team to be successful? And she shouldn't be talking about this person with other staff. She should be speaking to him directly if there was an area of concern. But there needs to be more coaching and more time spent with the person to orient them and onboard them into the team and into the project or the program. And I think that that's missing here. And for whatever reason, Cindy is not doing that or providing career advancement or professional development to mentor or get a mentor for this person. And I'm not sure if she's had an experience or if she's racist. I mean, I can't really tell, but it just seems to me like she's not being supportive. And she needs some coaching.
Very good points that you made, and I like the fact that you talked about the onboarding process as well, because that's definitely part of it. It kind of speaks to maybe like Jonathan was not set up for success from the very beginning, right? 6 months into his role at the company, he was moved onto a new team. And Cindy was not part of that decision-making process. She wasn't initially aware that about Jonathan, and all of a sudden she has this new team member on her team. So that definitely plays into it. It creates a barrier for both Jonathan and Cindy, right? Not just Jonathan here. And I also like the fact that you talked about, Cindy needs more coaching, and it kind of ties back to, empowering leaders through education. Cindy could definitely benefit from diversity and inclusion training, inclusive leadership training, definitely training that relates back to the LMX theory, right? What we had talked about before. you know, as well as some unconscious bias training. It sounds to me Cindy is biased against Jonathan from the very beginning because he has an accent. So already in her head, Jonathan is not part of her in-group because he's not like her. So she's already thinking, well, this person, you know, Jonathan can never, you know, can never be up to my standard anyways, because he has an accent, he's a newcomer, he'll never be a good cultural fit for my team and the company, etc. So a lot of barriers at play here, and definitely they need to be addressed for sure. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else would like to share?
Sure, it's Tina. So
Hi.
we talked about, we got through the 5 questions. We just had a couple of bullet points for each. So definitely that slide that you originally showed that had all the keywords, Cindy needs to take all those words and put them into practice. A lot of those words were really important. So, you know, non-inclusive, you know, for question number 1, you know, not listening to his ideas, or she was very dismissive, very judgmental regarding and that was already addressed regarding his accent. No discussion, and lack of communication on her part with Jonathan. So for question number 2, aware, like she needs to be more aware of her bias, or the coaching rather, is she needs that coaching to let her know to identify what her biases, that she was, you know, had biases feelings. Focus on the facts, not just the assumptions. Checking her point of view. Sorry, I'm trying to read my scribble. I was writing so fast.
No worries, you're doing
what
a great
has
job.
she done? What she can do to support. Cindy definitely needs training to mitigate the bias, and more transparency for sure.
Yes.
I think, you know, what would help Jonathan is in question number 3, mentors for him, educating himself on, you know, the postings or the opportunities within the organization to help set him up for success. What are his long-term goals? And, you know, to find that perfect match within the company. What else? We came up with question number 4. And I think that was what feedback, regular feedback. So give regular feedback to him. So this is things that she needed to improve on. Again, open communication, dialogue, listening more, clarifying, not just saying a good fit. And then the last question, definitely more transparency. Each person needs to be heard, all ideas considered, treating everyone equally, fair, understanding, and looking at the facts, looking at his experience. And I do like, you know, I didn't even think of it that time, but yeah, she wasn't part of the onboarding process for Jonathan. So I liked that was brought up, that could play a big factor if she had met him or had the discussion and got to know him at that, you know, even, hey, you know, tell me a little bit about yourself or your background, or, you know, wow, I see your, you know, I love your work experience. Let's talk about your resume, work experience that you have. What are your goals with the organization? Where do you see yourself long-term? I think she would have got to know him a lot better. So that's what we wanted to share. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tina, for sharing
Sure.
all of that. And they're all really, really good points. Again, you know, definitely bias has occurred in this scenario, and it, not to say Cindy's a bad person or Cindy's a racist, right? But she just needs, she's a person. Everyone has biases, right? I have biases, you have biases, everyone does. But the important thing is to be aware of our biases and not let that get in the way of promoting someone, supporting someone within your team. And basically it just plays into all aspects of life, both personal and professional, and not let that get in the way of those two spaces. So, so yeah,
Absolutely.
so Yeah, and providing Cindy with that coaching, because she may not be aware what she's doing, right?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and providing, and then and I like the feedback piece, okay, Cindy may be justified in the fact that like she doesn't feel that Jonathan is performing up to her standard. Okay, provide him with examples, provide him with that feedback, with specific examples as well. And important for leaders to provide solutions as well, right? Not just and this is something that is very close to my heart, because when I was growing up, I come from a very traditional and strict Chinese family. And my mom has always, she's like ingrained this in me. She always says, when you're pointing one finger at another person, there are 3 other fingers pointing back at you, right? So basically that just means, when you're seeing fault from another individual, you need to also look within yourself to see how you can correct these faults, and maybe how you as a person have impacted these faults to be produced. So it's not just always about the other person, but it's always really good to look internally as well to see, okay, like how can I help support Jonathan, and how can I help get to that level that he wants to be, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I forgot to mention that Sikta was part of my team. So her contribution, she contributed to the discussion as well, what I shared. So I just wanted to call that out to her.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Tina.
Amazing so well.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Great discussion. I love this. Anyone else would like to add to, what's been discussed or what's been brought up? Okay, great. So we're going to wrap up the session today. Let me just stop sharing my screen again. Sorry, 1 second. Okay. So concluding thoughts. Here we go. Some concluding thoughts, and I promise we're almost done. So in this globalized, transparent, and diversified world, it's very important for businesses to no longer just to expect to have a loyal and homogenous customer base, right? Diverse consumer groups have tremendous purchasing power if we think about it. Many consumers are willing to make purchases based on the extent to which a company and its products are attuned to their demands and desires. And those demands and desires are often connected to how the organization treats its workers and staff. So in our increasingly interconnected world with the power of the internet, consumers are able to see how an organization operates internally, whether that's posted on the company's LinkedIn or on sites like Glassdoor. I'm sure as people working within HR, as well as within the senior executive level, we're all very familiar with Glassdoor. It could end us, right? It could end an organization with a couple of bad reviews on there. So with that in mind, as an organization, it's very important to reflect your diverse customers, because it won't just improve company brand, increase employee wellness and retention, but it will ultimately lead to revenue growth for the company, right? Happy employees means higher productivity. Higher productivity means potential revenue growth, and that revenue growth is also related to the customer base as well, because they see that it's a good company and customers want to support good companies. So focusing on internal mobility for your employees also increases their family wealth and education. So, and it essentially leads to their next generation being a contributing member of society. So if Jonathan, as an example, had Cindy as a sponsor in this case, he would be able to create more generational wealth for his kids. And then potentially in turn, his kids will then become a contributing member to society. So it's all kind of interconnected if you think about it. It's, you know, it's not just for the benefit of employees and companies to create diverse and inclusive environments, but also it leads to a reinvestment in communities, in diverse communities, and the overall economy. And they're all good things, right? So why, like, I don't see a reason for a company to not invest in their diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, because it all goes back to the community, it all goes back to the economy and the overall success of the community that we live in. So that's just, you know, the major kind of takeaway here and my concluding thoughts, to not only just wrap up this training, but also the preceding two trainings. And if you weren't able to join us at our first two, don't worry, Tim Beat has the recordings for those two. So feel free to go to her and she'll be able to send you those recordings for you to view on your own time. Okay. Okay, so just want to, and again, you don't have to unmute your mic, but just wanted to kind of ask the audience again, what is one tangible action that you would like to start implementing? It could be, I should have been more specific. Start implementing within your team. So would it be frequent career discussions, designing inclusive leadership competencies, educational development, sponsorship, ensuring equitable access, or all of the above?
So Sarah, it's Tina. So as a talent acquisition partner, when I am hiring someone, you know, let's say they're new to Canada, I'm not just talking about the role that they're being hired into, but I'm also having career. I'm doing the offer, but I'm also taking 10 minutes to talk about their career potential in the organization. So I'm already giving them that bigger picture. And I think that's important because I want them to know it's not just, I'm not here just to land you a job. I'm here to help you with a career. So if I give that information up front, that newcomer is gonna be able to take that away, and he or she knows, okay, I've got to master this job, but I'm gonna have this potential because I've had this career conversation with Tina, and they know early on, once they, you know, get comfortable in their current role, to start having those career conversations with their manager, which is something that we do foster. So I'm already letting that individual know our culture is for you to have that career discussion. So hopefully that will open the doors and get him or her more comfortable. So that's something that I'm going to continue to do. Yeah.
No, that's awesome. I love that idea. And, you know, that's actually the first time I've heard that being done. So I think it's extremely innovative, and it's very, and it just speaks to the organizational values and how they value their employees as well. Even for a newbie coming in, a lot of risks are in the head for this individual, right? What if they don't like me? What if I don't pass the probationary period, etc. But the fact that you're having this conversation right off the bat, it would increase a lot of assurance in this person, and it would motivate this person to want to work hard from day one. So I think it's a win-win for all, right? To have this discussion. Yeah, that's great. Thank you for sharing that.
No, thank you.
Anyone else would like to comment, share, add to what Tina said?
I'm connected with ACCESS, so on a regular basis, I do host sessions with newcomers. So I'm going to continue to be very transparent, helping them on how to prepare for an interview so that they can be successful in that interview process. And I'm very transparent in the feedback that I do give, because I think sometimes we sugarcoat things a little bit. With newcomers, and because we don't want to hurt their feelings or whatever. And I understand that. And I don't mean I'm going to hurt their feelings, but meaning like I'll tell them, you know, straight up, you know, if your answers are way too long and, you know, and you're long-winded and you're not getting to the point, for example, that's going to hinder you versus help you. So you need to be concise. You need to be to the point. You need to highlight your skills, right? You need to be very focused. It's not time to story tell, you know? And they appreciate that feedback to say, oh, you know, no one's ever told me that. So that's something that I'm going to continue to do as well.
I love that. And yeah, actually that's, from my experience working at ACCESS all these years, you know, I've worked in frontline facing roles where I'm working directly with the clients. And that's one major challenge that they all have at the start, that they don't know what they're doing. And it's important for people in your position to provide that sort of feedback for them so that they can learn and be better integrated into the labor market here.
They don't know what they don't know, right? They think, oh, exactly. You know, tell them all about my entire self and life and get very detailed into the job description. We only need a few bullet points, right? So they just don't know that, right? So yeah.
And I know we're going off on a tangent here, but what was interesting to me, what I've learned over the years was the word networking isn't in all language vocabularies.
Right, right.
So for many newcomers to Canada, and networking here is such a big part of getting a good job, right? So, but they come here and they realize that they have to network, but they don't know what it is.
What it means, what it looks like, how to do it. They think, well, my resume speaks for itself, so I should land this job, right? And I say, you can look great on paper, but when it comes to the interview and who to connect with and selling your abilities and your skills and all of that, that's a whole different other ballgame, right? So, yeah. So I appreciate what you're doing. And Tina, what organization are you with? Can I ask? With TD Bank.
TD Bank. Okay. So we love TD at ACCESS. You guys have always been really, really wonderful long-term supporters of us. So thank you again for
good partnership.
Amazing. Awesome. Anyone else would like to comment and share before we wrap things up? Okay. All right. So last slide is to basically just you know, it's just to provide a big thank you to everyone who joined, as well as to Tinbeat from TSLIP for bringing us together. And for those of you who don't know, TSLIP is a strategic community initiative focused on promoting welcoming communities and improving the social and economic outcomes of newcomers through enhanced service delivery, collaboration, and the development of partnerships. So I want to thank TSLIP again for bringing all of us together. I'm sad that it's over. This is the third and last one, but I hope that for those of you who stuck with us from training one, I hope that you've learned a lot through the series. And for those of you who just joined us today, I still hope that you were able to take home some takeaways and be able to implement that in your workplace community. So thank you again. And yeah, hopefully everyone has a good rest of the day.
Yes, before everybody leaves, I also wanted to say Sarah and Layla and Sonia, who was a part of the first two sessions, thank you so much for delivering such informative information on EDI for employers. I know for myself, I've taken away quite a lot. So I hope that as participants, folks have been able to take away a lot as well. And as you mentioned in regards to the recordings, it will be available. I wanted to wait until the final session to provide it for everybody. So I'll be sending out an email shortly. And in that email, you'll also have the YouTube link to find it on the TSLIP website. But we hope to continue this partnership in the future. So thank you, everyone, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank
Take
you.
care, everyone.
Goodbye. Bye now. Take care. Bye.